Hey there, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode, I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey, and the lessons they've learned. And my guest for the next hour is Luke Steele, frontman with Empire of the Sun, Dreams, The Sleepy Jackson, and now his latest project, H3000. So Luke was pretty much born into music. Growing up in Perth, his childhood involved watching his guitarist dad play in pubs and clubs, and when he was old enough, joining his dad on stage at weekly blues jam nights. By 19, he'd formed indie band The Sleepy Jackson, with whom he toured the world and received widespread critical acclaim. His big break, though, came with Empire of the Sun, the outfit he formed in the mid-2000s with Nick Littlemore from electronic outfit PNAU, and whose song Walking on a Dream became an international hit. Even though that band is an ongoing concern, Luke's appetite for collaboration is as strong as ever. In 2018, he released the debut album by Dreams, his band with Silverchair frontman Daniel Johns, and he recently launched his latest project H3000 with fellow producer-songwriter Jarrad Rogers, who's written for the likes of Charlie XCX and Lana Del Rey. They've released a couple of singles called Running and July Heat, both taken from H3000's self-titled debut album, which is due in September. We talk about all those different projects in this interview, as well as Luke's upbringing in Perth, the importance of his faith, and much more. When we caught up, I was in Sydney and Luke was in Los Angeles, and we started by talking about H3000 and how it all came about.
Yeah, so I was in Henson Studios in Hollywood with Daniel Johns, actually. We were finishing the Dreams record, and we needed production on 2 songs, and we worked a fair bit with M-Phases, the Australian producer, and he'd mentioned Jarrad Rogers before because I did a track for the M-Phase record. So yeah, that's where we met. They basically came in and said a quick hi, and then it was like, I think for Jarrad it was a bit like an audition, so they headed upstairs to the B room, and he had nothing but some pens and pencils and stuff, and we gave him 2 tracks, and he came down and played it, I think an hour and a half later, and it just sort of, floored us. So, we did the Dreams tour and released that record, and that was amazing. And then I think it must have been the following year. It was the start of summer, going in summer in California, and he sent me some tracks, and, we just got rolling, It was quite a good process.
You felt a connection quite early on?
Yeah, I think that's what was kind of addictive about it. I always say supernatural, and that can be supernatural as in a supernatural spirit, but it really was supernatural. It was kind of, he would give me a backing track, I'd have something on my mind, I'd write the lyric, cut the vocals, send it back, it's done.
Right.
And it's always something to pay attention to when it's that natural, like anything, like love or a friendship, you just sort of, I think you gravitate to it,
Sure.
because it's easy, you want it to be easy, like, I think 50% of the time you're making music, it's just painful. It's like going to the dentist. So it was good. It was kind of, and I think we work on the same pace. We both have kids that are growing up. So we kind of, like my mum would always say, you want something done, ask the busiest person, So we work on a similar kind of speed, which I really like because I'm super impatient. So, I'd put down a vocal, and then by dinner time he'd have a new drum pattern for the middle eight or the new chorus and the outro. And by the next day, it's, here's a new mix, and it's quite, and I love that. I love that process. You've got, the toast going, you're on a phone call, you're listening to a mix, you're making something for the kids while you're searching an artist on the web.
Right. Multitasking.
Yeah. Kind of like how Elvis used to have all the different TVs and,
Yeah. Was there ever any conversation about what you wanted the project to sound like? I mean, you said that he just sort of started sending you some beats and you would sing over them, but was there ever any discussion about, let's try and do this?
No, I think that's what's exciting when you don't talk about it, because I think every musician will probably agree with me that it's always a paradox. You go to write, the 165 BPM fast, heavy Metallica-like song with speed riffs, and you end up with an 82 BPM ballad, that you might be palming off to a soul singer or something. So it's, certain things did influence the sound. Like I'd just come back, I'd done 2 trips to Japan with the Empire, and I just got so obsessed with the culture and the sounds, you know, in vending machines, but also in the techno district. There's you know, there's toys that make certain sounds and things that you don't understand, and even the toilets. And
Right.
So I kind of tried to apply that to all the vocals and found some new vocal pedals. And I think Jarrad's right into the detail stuff as well, detail production. So we sort of connected on that, you know, what's the sound of the future, you know.
Obviously, you know, there may not have been like a clear discussion about how the project was going to sound, but presumably you had an idea that it was going to exist in a certain universe. So it's going to exist in a, you know, there's going to be elements of EDM or synth pop or pop. Presumably you set some sort of dimensions, or not really?
No, no, not really. And I think I'm trying to do that even more these days. Like you just have to surrender to if it works.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of exciting as well when you don't know where it's going to end. Like if you know what it's going to sound like, then it's probably going to be a boring record.
Yeah, of course. And I guess when you think of Empire of the Sun and Dreams and now H3000, I guess they all have quite lavish, if not backstories. You've created a universe for them all. You've created a world for each project, and I've seen this H3000 has been described as existing on a plane of existence far removed from ours. Who influenced you in that regard in terms of creating worlds for each project?
I think I've always been envious of actors. You know, it's like actors live, depending on how many movies they do, many different lives. You know, you run into Tom Hanks and it's like, oh, it's Forrest Gump. It's, you know, the guy from Castaway. And, you know, I do sort of write a lot of stuff. Like I think as I'm getting older, I've got a lot more to write about, and I actually know how to do it properly now. So, yeah, it's exciting building something which is in a different lane, you know, and it's like a different movie, you know. It's like Dreams was awesome because it was we're like the street gang, you know, that was, you know, connecting with cyber and stuff. It was kind of quite aggressive, and that's kind of the thinking behind it.
Okay. And I guess that's reflected in the different personas that you have for some of these projects. So I believe, so obviously in Empire of the Sun, you're Emperor Luke. In Sleepy Jackson, I think you went for Luke Blonde for a little while. And now if you think of H3000, it's Luke 18. Like who is Luke 18?
I just thought it was a cool name, you know. Like I think, it just sounded cool. And then I saw a sermon and it was something about Luke 18, and it's like, what's impossible to man, you know, is not to God, you know. And I was like, yes, thank you. You know, if it was like, you know, you have sinned and you'll be swallowed up by the wrath of God, it would have been Luke 19 or...
So what, Luke 18 is, No,
it wasn't to a scripture, but I just thought after, probably should check that out, you know.
Okay. And how does that relate to what you're singing about in the project? Or does it have any relation at all?
Well, the whole thing, like a lot of the lyrics were about the issues of the heart, you know. Like there'd been Anthony Bourdain had committed suicide, and then there was Avicii who, you know, I was going to work with the Empire, and Jarrad's worked with, and I don't know if he meant to do it, but it just, the corruption, you know, and it led to him leaving the planet. And I think a lot of the events that were happening in America at the time, there's so much going on, you know. Like one time I was working in Topanga Canyon with a producer, and, you know, I got the call, there's a shooter, he's got AK-47, he's just robbed the Wells Fargo across the road from the school, and the school's locked down and it's surrounded by police. And there's my little, like, you know, 5-year-old son huddled under a table, and then my daughter a couple classrooms, you know, and parents aren't allowed to go anywhere near the school. Why? There's the gunman walking around Santa Monica. So, I think, you know, that inspired, you know, a lot of the things with the record. I think that the issues that start within kind of become bigger issues.
How did your 5-year-old recover from that?
Yeah, well, I think they do drills in America, so they're kind of mentally prepared that there's a gunman, so get under the desk. And yeah, it's pretty strange. So I think, at the time it was kind of, I had all these things to write about, and a bunch of that sort of came into it.
And is H3000 related in any way to HAL 9000?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Where does that name come from?
Well, there's my favorite piece of gear is the Eventide H3000, which is going to come up and people say you got it from that. But it really was, what are going to be the issues in the year 3000? So it's like Heart 3000 or Heaven 3000.
Okay.
Like, will there be wars? Will there be the same problems in the catacombs of the heart? Will there be passports to what happens? Because it's just the most important thing of the whole world, like with all the issues happening now, from, kids killing themselves to racism. It all starts in the heart, because only what's inside can come out,
So in that regard, is the music, because we've heard 2 songs so far. We've heard July Heat and Running. But do you think, does that, what you were just saying then, does that suggest that the album is going to be, is it hopeful, or is it going to be quite a somber affair?
Yeah, I think it's definitely hopeful, Like, I think the song Running was a lot about, it starts off with the betrayal, but then it becomes, when the chorus hits, it's like the next part where it's like the pressure's gone from my heart. It feels like, because I'm running with you, and it's like you're running with the divine being, and you've taken the high road in a way, I guess, and I was thinking about in the middle of the night, like you have 2 roads, when that happens, and everyone gets that sting of betrayal. Everyone gets that in anything, it's not like you'd meet one person and where they'd never be betrayed, never had anything bad happen to me. But it's like that thing, and I think I'm starting to, I think when I was younger, I'd probably smash something or smash up a hotel room. But I think now I'm starting to realize slowly, it'll probably take me another 40 years, but to realize that line, like hurting people hurt people. So you have to take that road that's maybe more rockier, but will have a greater, liberation and greater freedom at the end.
So there's a wisdom coming into your songwriting that comes with age.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I always wonder why I get dealt so many of those things. It's
like what?
Band members that you nurture and you take around the world, you buy gear, and then they'll turn around and take everything you've bought and try and sue you. I've had a lot of those things, but just that a lot of that goes on through different cycles, I think, in the music industry, because you're dealing with a hot and heavy landscape. There's fame, there's money, it's life-changing things that are involved. And I always wonder, like, because you see other bands, but everyone gets dealt their own thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, I get to go through it to come out the other side, to be put in a greater power of influence,
Does that also stem, you mentioned the scriptures earlier, does that stem from your faith, that way of thinking at the moment of being challenged and trying to find ways to overcome it?
Yeah, definitely. Because if you didn't have God, then you'd easily be dead, It's kind of that thing, like I wrote this line a while ago, it's this painting I've been doing, it's called The Magnet Is Always On. There's always this magnet that's drawing you. And the other one's the kind of like the anchor or the lasso,
Right, like, the other side.
Sometimes you just end off and you're wandering down the alleyway, and then you're in the the heart of the lights, and you're and then it's like you feel the, whoa,
right,
get back here, and it's like the cowboy god, it's lassoed you and pulled you back,
Was that faith something you were raised with, or is that something that you've come to over the years?
Yeah, no, I wasn't raised with it. I think it was, going through some pretty full-on times, I think when I was younger, I had like peripheral vision, I would think I can, pinpoint a path to success and make it on my own. But then you realize there's certain things that are just always going to derail that.
Mm-hmm.
And it got derailed, and I just hit the bottom, and the end point was me really depressed, just in a bath, just like, cutting myself. And then my mum came in and was like, what are you doing? This has just gone too far, and that's when I realized, you gotta have savior,
Yeah.
I think that's what's confusing now to the world, because it's a lot of people been hurt by that, but there really is only, God or the devil. Like Bob Dylan would say, you got to serve somebody. It's,
Yeah. I mean, talking about your upbringing, I mean, we've spoken about H3000 and how it's sort of, and I guess with Dreams and Empire of the Sun, you have that, I guess they're in the worlds of dance music or EDM or synth pop, but you were raised, if I understand, more on artists like Django Reinhardt and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Is that right?
Yeah, Stevie Ray and JJ Cale was a real big one that, when I play with my father still, we still play JJ Cale. A lot of Bob Dylan, a lot of, John Prine, Carole King.
And is this all coming, because I know your dad is or was a very well-regarded blues guitarist in Perth for decades. Is your father still with us?
Yeah, he is. He's still playing.
Still playing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in his early 70s, so, I think the fingers are getting a bit slower now, but he's still rocking.
Was that his influence, those artists that you just mentioned? Was it your father who would sort of expose you to these artists? Yeah,
definitely. And I would always find tapes in the old Valiant, Don Williams. I discovered Don Williams actually through his old yellow Valiant. Yeah, and I think his whole circle of friends, I grew up in he's still running the blues club there. He's been the president there for nearly 30 years. So, I kind of loved that. I always thought there was great wisdom in hanging around all these old blues guys, because they would all drink too much and smoke too much, but they would just talk to you about, the deep web of the blues, and the guitars would come out. And
how old were you when you started hanging out with them?
Well, ever since I was born, it was, I grew up in that basically. That was the outing, going to the pub the next day to pack up the gear and, watch other acts and the old beer garden, like Australia is so cool with the beer garden. It's a bit more like Europe, where in America they don't understand the beer garden.
So explain the beer garden for anyone in America who might be listening.
Well, the beer garden is basically like a pub outdoors, which has tables and chairs and usually in a nice setting and little stage in the corner. And
yeah,
I kind of missed that.
And so you grew up watching your dad play in beer gardens and in venues around Perth?
Yeah, and and every Tuesday night, like still to this day, is the blues club there in Perth. So
right.
Once I started getting some chops, he would basically every Tuesday at any point in time say, got my son out there, he's going to get up, he's going to play some licks. And they'd have a house band, so he'd just get up, just say to the guitarist, all right, pass him your axe. And that was kind of that was my training, because I'd always have to be ready. And in a club of usually 400 to 500 people, it was pretty you'd learn pretty quick like that,
Yeah. How old were you, do you reckon, when you started getting pulled up on stage?
Well, that was around, I think 15. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so is this just seeming like a magical world to you at this point? Are you just captivated by what you're seeing and what you're sensing and experiencing in these pubs as a 15-year-old?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's what shaped me a lot, because you understand, and, a lot of musicians will understand this as well, that those early days is, if something is going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. So you realize what happens when you break a string, when you're doing the riff on the E string, or what happens when your guitar cuts out, or you have to learn how to become a performer.
And what's happening to your school life at this point? If you're in the clubs on a Tuesday night and playing with your dad's band at the age of 15, where is school fitting into all this?
Well, I think my mum was pretty forgiving, because she grew up, obviously grew up with it. So I was fortunate like that.
Okay.
Yeah. It was always that thing, but, you have to get a trade or get a backup. So I managed to go to art school, and that was great because I could kind of do all the art for the bands and stuff. And
okay.
that's a whole nother story in itself. It was always funny, the art teachers, oh, good on you, Steele. Do your poster for your band. And it was like, yeah.
Are these real bands or imaginary bands or?
Or like when Sleepy Jackson was started and earlier bands, you know, but it was funny how little faith they had in me as a musician. It was always, yeah, good on you, mate. But it's funny, like most of these records that have been transported all around the world, I've done the artwork for, so I have to go.
Okay.
Have to go back there one day.
That's
take that.
And what about your mum? What did she do?
So my mum's a school teacher in the children's hospital. So
wow.
Yeah, I think we've always been brought up with that, you know, that tender heart, how she'd always say, you know, there's always someone worse off. You know, she'd come home and she'd say, little Johnny, you know, who had had cancer, he passed away today. And so we've grown up with that, you know, that reality where it's tough for people out there.
Do you think that shaped your worldview from quite early on? Did it give you an understanding or an empathy for other people's situations?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. You know, and you always learn that thing that when you're complaining about something, you know, it's always like, well, someone else is a lot worse off than you, you know.
Mm.
So, yeah, you got to be thankful for what you got, you know.
Yeah. Was your mum musically inclined?
No, she wasn't. She knows a good song, but, you know, yeah, she never really played anything, but she definitely knows what good music is.
Okay. Do you run your demos past her at all?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I do a lot. Yeah, she's a good judge, you know, because they just listen to what it's about, you know. It's not about the production or this or that. It's about, you know, and she's grown up with all that greatest songwriters there was, you know, there ever was. You know, it's when John Lennon's Imagine came out, they were having a party celebrating the record, and the police came to the door and said, you know, why is the music so loud? And it was like John Lennon's record came out, and she said, you want to come in for a drink? So the police came in and partied till 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't really see that happening these days, but
but it must have been quite a I guess a musical upbringing, because obviously a couple of your siblings, Katie and Jake, sort of ended up going into music as well. And you just described that party, and your dad's playing guitar every week in the pubs. Was it a loud household?
Yeah, and my brother Jesse as well was a drummer. He was the
Jesse. Okay.
Yeah, he was the drummer in Sleepy Jackson, and a great lyricist. Yeah, it was pretty loud and, you know, quite fun. You know, quite a party. Like I was saying, every Tuesday, literally the whole club would come back, or the remains. So you'd have, you know, at a minimum 20 to 30 people come back every Tuesday, and then throughout the week, different musicians dropping in constantly and picking up guitars, and so it was quite cool because you'd pick up little, you know, chords here and stories. And
was there ever any other career option for you? Did these experiences was music always going to be it?
Art was always a real big thing from when I was young, but I think doing work experience as a graphic designer, I just, you know, it's just not dramatic enough for me. So I had to leave that. But yeah, music started when I was actually in New Zealand one Christmas, and we'd just arrived to see all my dad's side. We're down on the Coromandel, and it was New Year's Eve, and we're at a beach park on a skate ramp, and I think I was trying to show off to some Maori girls, and I broke my arm. So, you know, we had to travel on New Year's Eve through the mountains to the nearest hospital. And so, yeah, the whole holiday, basically, I was sitting there just with my dad, who was, you know, on the deck playing guitar. So I just said, you know, show us some chords. That became the initial sessions of, you know, just being able to strum through a cast, you know, a few chords.
After the break, Luke talks about his wild days on the road with the Sleepy Jackson and the success of Empire of the Sun. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Luke Steele. Clearly, in all the musical projects that you do now, they're the end result of your imagination. Did you have a vivid imagination as a kid?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's quite wild, you know, and I think it's getting wilder now. And I think having my kids who are quite, they're quite wild as well, the way they think. And, my son's turning 7 in a few days, and he does these drawings, and they're a cross between Basquiat and Dr. Seuss. They're quite, they're just, I was talking to him about metamorphosis and stuff I'd do in art school, where it's like take an egg beater and combine that with an elephant, or take a computer and combine that with a dragonfly, and you have to Photoshop that together.
Yeah.
So he's understood that concept of, a dinosaur with a butterfly, and my daughter's just discovering like anime makeup and Bjork and all that stuff. So she's on these Zoom calls looking like, the front cover of Post or Homogenic or something. So it's getting pretty wild.
What do they make of your creations and the things that you dream up, whether it's the Empire of the Sun stage show or the new video for the H3000 song, Running?
Yeah, they love it. And, kids are a pretty good test, because they're uninhibited by the machine. And sometimes I hear them singing a melody and you kind of know that that's a good sign. And I think sometimes with lyrics now, they're a good judge, because if it's too deep in a too deep way, it's gone past the point for them. It's funny.
So you leave school and eventually you start the Sleepy Jackson at the age of 19 in Perth. And I've seen you describe yourself as Mr. Ambitious. Was that the case back then? Did you have that ambition immediately?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it grows. Yeah, it's funny, the ambition, because you don't know what it is, I remember hearing an interview with John Spencer recently, and he just said it gets inside it. It's like a bug. He just said, I've got the bug. I thought that was kind of a cool way of putting it.
Yeah.
And and like I was saying a minute ago, like I don't know why the vision just keeps getting bigger and bigger, It's kind of, and I think people look at me sometimes and go, you're a fruitcake, but the vision has to be impossible. If it's possible, it's not big enough, And I used to say that when I was back in Perth, when I had $75. We're living in a caravan, which someone left for my parents out the front of their house. And I'd say to my wife, we're going to travel the world. We're going to sell millions of records. We're going to have a house by the ocean. We're going to sell out the Hollywood Bowl. And everyone would just look at me like, fruitcake. But we did all those things, and now it's like, I still have dreams of running a hotel like Pharrell's just done, and, owning a giant waterfront Hawaiian studio, and,
Yeah.
all these weird things.
Because I was going to actually ask you about that time when you were living in a caravan, because I believe that was around about the time of the Sleepy Jackson's second album, Personality. One was a spider, one was a bird. So at that point, you'd already had a degree of success with Lovers, Sleepy Jackson's first record from 2003. You'd been overseas, you'd traveled the world, you'd had a lot of media hype as well, and some chart success, but then you found yourself back in that caravan with your girlfriend at the time, who I understand is now your wife. Did you never lose confidence? Did you never lose faith that this could be your career?
Yeah, I never did. It's funny that I was talking to my brother about that. Like, I have pretty bold faith. Like, when I have a vision, I don't know, I'm pretty bold with it. Like, this is what we're going to go for. And
there were no quiet moments where you're just thinking to yourself, shit, is this going to happen?
There is always those moments. And I think that's when, you go through the depression, and then, like I went through some pretty big depressions, and they were always like the last really big one I have was after the Personality record, because it didn't really do what it meant to, and I'd put so much into it. I recorded thousands of vocals, and I wanted it to be my symphony, and I had a bit of a mental breakdown, and I kind of was buying all this space food, and I wanted to live underground at the back of my parents' house, and it lasted for about 8 months until it became, I started to get better, so.
How did you get out of that?
Well, I think that was like a lot of prayer and a lot of people praying for you, and you never underestimate the power of a mother's prayer. I think, but there were some moments there that were pretty strange. When you get into a cycle, and it's your mind's caught in a trance of believing the lie, and it just becomes like a insanity thing, and then paranoia, and
That's the lie you're creating in your own mind.
yeah, there definitely was moments, but I think that's what shapes you, as a young artist. I was just talking to my wife about this recently, actually, that she asked, well, if you went back, would you change anything? And I said, no, I wouldn't, because that's what makes the youth so powerful, is that they're uninhibited. They're so powerful with every brushstroke because they don't care. They're like the reckless punk that has, no worry or no anxiety or no responsibility. And that's why people are so, in love with the youth, because it's just such a fresh, stroke on the whole thing. And I think when I was younger, because the upbringing was good, I think I hit some point where mentally I thought some of my favorite artists, their upbringings have been more flamboyant than mine and more weirder. So I have to create that, I have to go and make a mess, I have to go
Right.
I have to go and do something stupid, so it'll change the fabric and it'll change the outcome of what, the script looks like.
And did it? Did you achieve that?
Yeah, but to your own detriment and to your own demise, But I think you pick up some things along the way that you get to live, Like I think the first tour we did of America, like twice around the whole America in the splitter van, everyone was reading the Motley Crue book, and it was the tour of debauchery,
Right. This is the Sleepy Jackson.
Yeah, we would, you'd drink as much as you could, but to keep it together on stage, and then after after the show, that's when the party began, and each night, then the gauge would go up a bit hotter, and then the amount of hotel rooms that we smashed, and I had a few friends pass away as I was on the road, so then you'd smash even more stuff. And I think part of that reckless abandonment of being a young rock star touring America, so you're not proud of it, but I guess that's something you wouldn't do now, that you can't take it.
Sure.
You can't take away from the youth.
But you felt that in some ways you needed to live up to the myth or create a myth.
Yeah.
Is that what was propelling that kind of behavior?
Yeah, and then I think once all the walls come crashing down, you realize you don't need to go running to danger.
Right. Was there an element of it that was fun? There must have been some of it.
Oh, it was it was completely fun. It was nothing but fun. I think because it's, when you're young, you have so much energy. You can party all night. You jump on the tour bus. We'd pick up people from the show. They'd jump on the bus and they'd jump off at the next town, and then you'd end up at, those are the days. People would come back after the show and they'd say, I'm having a party at my place, and then you're in the middle of Texas somewhere at someone's house, and it's just, and all you have to remember is that you got to get back to get on the tour bus at 9 a.m. because we're driving to Memphis or something. So you really did have the time of your life. And I think once it gets too professional, it is obviously all about the music, and that's what it becomes more about. But it becomes quite, a different kind of fun.
Sure.
Maybe that's the right way of putting it.
How did those experiences, you just mentioned that period where after Personality didn't do so well and you were buying a lot of space food and you wanted to live underground. The next project you did after that was Empire of the Sun, which of course starts to get some sort of success, the success that presumably you had been driving for years. But did all those experiences inform the way you approached Empire of the Sun, either creatively or professionally?
Yeah, it's always shaping it. Yeah, definitely. And I think the Sleepy Jackson came from an indie scene. I grew up in the Perth indie scene, playing with, all those great bands like your Jebediahs and Turnstile and all these great indie bands. But I think when we got to Empire, it was, okay, let's stop playing it down, looking at our shoes. Let's embrace color. Let's be flamboyant. And I think Nick was the same. He'd been sort of in the club, with PNAU, and it was all a bit enclosed. So yeah, it kind of we stepped through a new door, and then it was let's go to Shanghai to shoot the video, and yeah, it was quite cool because we started talking about the stage show and about how, you know, a way we could see all these different parts of the world was shooting videos in different jungles, and yeah, it was definitely exciting.
This is that imagination you were talking about having as a kid, actually now having a canvas or a platform to really go big with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, Nick's such a deep artist, you know, he grew up in all these different art worlds. So he had such a big knowledge of, you know, painters and filmmakers and designers and all kinds of things. So we really connected on, it was like two bits of fabric, you know, or two different minds, you know, that are, you know, in harmony. It was pretty cool.
Mm. And somehow you've managed to maintain that creative harmony, at least, even though, you know, don't tour together. Nick Littlemore doesn't actually come on the road with Empire of the Sun, but you've still managed to maintain an artistic harmony, which I think is really important.
Yeah, we have. It's strange. We're both, the other day I was doing an interview and we ended up we're both uniquely unique. You know, it's funny. We work on a weird yin and yang thing, but it's like we're both like those hypercolor t-shirts. So it's like we're always changing, and we have to be at the right temperature to work, because sometimes it's so strange. But when we connect, it's pretty unbelievable. Like we just had a couple of trips to Japan. Oh, it was a couple of years ago now, but it was just quite incredible going to these little bars and just, you know, drinking beer and eating really expensive like Wagyu beef and talking about lyrics and understanding this other planet of Japan, about how people can have that much respect. And then we'd go to a, you know, modular synthesizer festival, which was just like an underground bunker with, you know, 15 deep, you know, modular Japanese synth gurus making stuff. And yeah, so we have these times, these experiences where we do things, and I think that's when we connect, because we have a moment, you know. It's funny. But sometimes in the studio, it's just, you know, it's just not exciting enough for us, you know. There's not enough like, you know, tentacles of imagination or zing or something, you know.
Did you sense when you were writing Walking on a Dream that it was going to be what it became in terms of success?
I knew it was good, but never to the point where it's like there's 3 billion, you know, hashtags on TikTok, you know. Well, it's just yeah, it was quite, and it still amazes me, you know, how powerful, you know, that song is. It's still, you know, getting synced to this day around the world on commercials, but it was written out of a place of pure good intention. You know, Nick's girlfriend at the time was in the Amazon jungle and she was real sick, and, you know, he was buying all these phone cards and he couldn't get in touch with her, and then he'd go, I've got to go back to the store and get another one, and they were on the road somewhere and couldn't, so he didn't really know whether she was, you know, had died or not. So we just went in and we just wrote that, you know, kind of like a prayer, you know, sort of thing.
And so Walking on a Dream, the title refers to what in that regard?
Well, it was written, I think he was writing it like, you know, about when two people become one, the strength it is together. And
right.
Yeah, obviously the lyrics don't reference that exactly, but that was the
idea.
That was the moment that we did it.
So within a couple of years from living in a caravan out the front of your parents' house, you're now starting, and I realized it was some years before Walking on a Dream actually really took off in the States, when it was on the Honda commercial in about 2016, I think. But still, there was still success prior to that. And all of a sudden you're now in the orbit of people like Jay-Z, Beyonce, Pharrell. How do you come to terms with that? How do you stay grounded, or did you in fact manage to stay grounded?
I think you stay grounded by having kids.
Well, your first was born on the day that Walking on a Dream came out, is that right?
So Sunny Tiger, she was the blessing of the Empire, because she was born the week that the record came out, and that was, the rest was history. But yeah, I think you don't have time, you know. I don't think if I didn't have kids, you know, I'd be a, you know, basket case, you know, because definitely puts you in this perspective, you know.
Was there an example of a time where you were in that world of the Beyonce and Jay-Z's, and then the second later you're changing a nappy? Was there an example of that kind of like dichotomy of your life at that point?
There was something similar to that, not a nappy, but there was one time for my daughter's third birthday, which we just in Santa Monica, we decided to have a fancy dress party. So I put on all this makeup, and she looked up and she said, "Daddy going to work?" That's not really what you're talking about, but I always thought that was a cute story.
The world's a meeting.
But, the old PTA meetings and, all that kind of stuff was just so hard, It's 7:30 at the school and it's just, I think you can't, get ahead of yourself, because you just get put right back in place, that
sure.
No one really cares, really.
Did you ever take time to, or have you ever had a chance to reflect on how far you've come though? From, again, thinking about being in that caravan going, we're going to do this, we're going to play the Hollywood Bowl, to later have achieved those goals. And have you ever had that chance just to sit and reflect on that?
Yeah, a little bit, I struggle. Hey, I think that's one of my big struggles is learning to slow down. And I think, I only get that at certain places, like, when you go surfing or, So I got to work on that because I'm addicted to vision, I just can't stop thinking about ideas, Are
you that person who has a dream at 3 a.m. and there's a melody in there and you have to wake up and go and actually record it?
Exactly. So the last couple of years, I wake up every morning at 3 and go back to
3?
Yeah, and go back to sleep about 5. So I don't know what's happening, but I'd write all of my best lyrics at that time. It's quite strange. I remember William Burroughs used to do that every night. He'd wake up at that time and he'd have a glass of milk and stuff and take some drugs and that. But yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I think maybe as you get older, you think that the time's running away and you got to put more paint on the canvas or something.
Last couple of things, Luke. Everything that you've learned in your career to this point, all the experiences that you've had, and again, going back to growing up, watching your dad play in blues clubs, and I guess thinking about you wanting to have a career in this industry. Now that you have a career and you've experienced some amazing things, what do you think has surprised you most about the industry that you wouldn't have had any idea of back in those early days when you were dreaming of doing this?
Oh, the biggest thing, I think, when Joe Walsh from the Eagles said, he wished someone told me music was a business and not an art form.
Right.
I think that's been the biggest thing for me, that I've never, ever done things for money. And, I've been successful and I've been able to put food on the table and put, roof over my head for my family. But it's so heavy, it's so involved on money in the industry. And now even more so, it's like its own currency. And it just shocks me time and time again because the heat's getting hotter, people want more. And to the point, people, like they say, a friend is easier lost than found. People do anything they can, to get what they can. We had I don't know whether I should talk about this, but we had maybe I shouldn't. But yeah, we've had kind of what we were talking earlier on, people, that you've taken under your wing and you've all around the world, and you've, made everyone stay in the same hotel. You take out for expensive meals and you'll eat together, and then they turn around and try and sue you, and take you for everything you got, It's because of money, and I always remember that, like the thing, like a friend is easier lost than found, it's sad because it's the memories go, and they're sort of tainted where you can always make more money, so I didn't really see that coming at that degree,
Okay.
When I was a kid, you'd think, people love the song, it's great, but it gets heavy, people will rip your heart out and then try and sell it back to you,
Last but not least, Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Are there people that you give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, really. I think, my parents especially, my father on the musical side, but my mother on the nurturing side and the forgiveness side, like teaching to have a tender heart. I've had some great mentors, like Colin Murphy was a preacher that basically, saved my life. My older brother, Jesse, it's been a real great mentor. And so definitely, your parents, my older brother, and then a whole bunch of different preachers, Colin Murphy, there was Dave Meldrum when I was in Perth, Barry Crocker Jr., who's become a father figure for me over here in Los Angeles.
And that again comes back to the importance of your faith.
Yeah, well, I think you need the wisdom when there's so many powerful elements at play, like we've talked about, from fame to money to being a father, trying to make the right decisions. It's quite, probably the most important thing, hope, and then to have the wisdom, of what the hell to do next,
I mean, beyond your faith giving you that direction, though, have there been people who in the industry who have gone through what you've gone through and have given you some advice, or people that have mentored you in ways of, this has happened to me and this is how you can deal with it? Has there been anyone actually in the industry that you've been able to lean on?
Johns. Me and him have been so close for the last 20 years. And he's been, just such a good friend like that, because he's been through, just as much as me and probably even more things in a way, and had more intensity involved, from his, level of fame and all the things that he's dealt with from, I'm not sure everyone knows about some of the things he went through, but it's not always rosy, it's not all just what it looks like. We have this kind of code, if the phone rings twice, I actually just wrote a song about, the phone rings twice. It's like, okay, we got to talk. And the amount of times I've been, I can just remember all these times, being in Atlanta, working with Usher and kind of going, oh man, I'm just having a breakdown, and calling Dan, or being in the middle of Germany on the tour bus going, I'm losing my mind. And I think be in similar positions, be these front people, and we see eye to eye on so many things. And I think the same, I like to think, he calls me at times as well, so you can talk through it.
Yeah. Which
is important, I think, in the music industry, because it's heavy. It's like that, I can't remember the quote, but it's filled, like they say, it's filled with blood-sucking, cowboys who are out for your life, and there's a bad side as well.
All right, Luke. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really great chatting with you. I really appreciate it.
Great to chat and catch up again.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thanks to Luke for his time, and thank you for listening. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, share it amongst your friends and rate and review it. And remember, next time you need to know who wrote a song, who produced a song, who engineered it, who played on it, who sang on it, who did anything on it, head to jaxsta.com for all your official music credit information. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.